So I'm going to get us started and kicked off. Hi, I'm Lisa. Hopefully you all know my face. I know my elf hat is very disguising. So I'm with Bear Districts and the League. And today we have presenting Catherine Tercer from Common Cause Ohio, Mia Lewis from Common Cause, and Colin from ACLU Ohio. So thank you so much for joining us today. We are recording this call and I believe we'll send out a recording, but I can't remember how that works off the top of my head.
Yes.
So happy holidays to everyone. So what we'll cover tonight, as we discussed, is we'll go over what's going on with the lawsuits. We've got 2 now. We'll just talk about the congressional map briefly, so you can kind of see in more detail what's going on with the map and why it's so bad. And then we'll go over some storytelling options, and we'll participate in a fun word cloud activity to help us vent and also be positive. So to prep for this, which will come to the slide as well, but you can open your phone or computer up to menti.com. That's how we'll create the word cloud. You put your words in about your feelings, and then it creates this beautiful piece for us to examine how we're all feeling about what's going on. So then we'll send out a questionnaire for you to answer since we're kind of doing a summary today, and then we'll talk about the next huddle, and then we'll talk about steps. So what comes after we've got the maps, we've got these lawsuits, what comes after that? So that's where we're headed. So Colin is going to go talk about the lawsuits, but just to review what's happening, there are multiple lawsuits, and what we heard today was the Ohio House and Ohio Senate map lawsuit. There's an additional lawsuit as well. So Colin, if you want to take it away and kind of talk about what you think happened today, or if you can. I know it was a lot, so take it away.
Sure thing, and thanks, Lisa, and good evening, everybody. I am on cloud 9 about what happened today at the Ohio Supreme Court. I actually just went back and rewatched the argument before this meeting, so I'm a little jazzed up right now. A little fired up. Today is a damn good day to be a fair districts reformer. Basically, we really could not have asked for a better showing today. We always want to understand that when it comes to redistricting in front of the Supreme Court, we are essentially arguing in front of a constituency of 1, and that is Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor. And for all intents and purposes today, she seemed extraordinarily sympathetic to the claims that we were making and rather hostile to the assertions made by the Redistricting Commission and their counsel. Just kind of starting off, you know, we made our case. Fred Levinson, the legal director at the ACLU, started off talking about how Section 6 lives throughout the entire document. It is enforceable, which was a main assertion made by our opponents, is that Section 6 is in fact, you know, toothless essentially, as long as you follow the mechanical construction requirements that are in Sections 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. It appears, you know, Chief Justice O'Connor at one point during the proceedings asked or it kind of alluded to our opposing counsel's arguments, and she frankly said, you know, if Section 6 is not actionable, you know, why is it even in the Constitution? She seemed to be very skeptical of the 81% to 19% reasoning that was included in the commission's explanation statement. You know, she directly pushed back on, you know, categorizing election results as a per election basis rather than number of individual votes cast. And she said she characterized the statewide office holders' participation in drawing the maps as non-existent. She brought up Secretary LaRosa's using the word asinine to describe the maps. She called out Governor DeWine for not really knowing for sure whether or not the map was constitutional when he voted for it, and essentially really acted and officiated the proceedings in a way that we really could not have asked for a better result. We were live chatting, me and the rest of my ACLU colleagues were live chatting during the oral argument. And this was, the common thread by the rest of our legal staff. As they're hearing things, they're saying, oh my God, this is phenomenal. We're making our points well known. For any of you who are not familiar with how the Ohio Supreme Court operates, they very much rule from a bully pulpit. They are able to interrupt counsel at any moment during their presentation to ask questions and ask for clarification. When we made our assertion that Section 6 lives throughout the document, it was not questioned. It was simply, received with head nods and no questions. Justice Pat DeWine specifically called out the fact that there's the section in the Constitution that says you can only redraw districts, redraw the map if the mechanical construction requirements are not met. That was resoundingly and eloquently defended. Our lawyers came up with a beautiful turn of phrase when describing the relationship between a Section 6 violation versus a construction violation, which is the court has the option to, in a construction violation, use a scalpel to correct the map. But in terms of a Section 6 violation, they use a sledgehammer. So that was a very nice characterization. The ACLU and the other two lawsuits, their co-counsels did a fantastic job. The Brennan Center for Justice had the final rebuttal argument, and Mr. I believe his name's Ben Sutherland, really cleaned up the assertions made by the respondents, saying that we're not talking about essentially allowing business as usual. These provisions were put into the Ohio Constitution to keep exactly what happened from happening. And again, there really was not a lot of pushback on our end. However, when the Redistricting Commission and the Legislative Leaders Council spoke, there was a very in-depth back and forth in terms of how proportionality was used, the process in terms of statewide office holders not being able to review the map, the map drawers themselves saying they were instructed to explicitly not pay attention to Section 6 requirements. So if you have an hour or so, please go back and watch the proceedings. It really, I can't stress enough how encouraged we are by today. And the one final point I will say that should instill encouragement in all of us is that Chief Justice O'Connor point blank posed the hypothetical to the respondents' counsel, saying, say that this court finds that this map is in violation. What happens next? And they start to explore the next steps in terms of issuing an order, the commission's reconstituted, and a new map is produced, and thus going back to the Supreme Court for final sign off. There was a little bit of a agreement between the respondents' counsel and the Chief Justice that, theoretically, these kind of, recreating the map, coming back to check, recreating the map, going back to check, could continue in perpetuity, essentially. which is something that we've highlighted in previous conversations during these meetings and others, that though the Constitution doesn't allow the Supreme Court to draw or enact a specific district, set of districts, or plan in general, they can be exceedingly, I wouldn't say exceedingly, excuse me, they can exercise their discretion to be as detailed in their order as possible without saying, you know, they don't have to put pen to paper in order to force them to draw a compliant map. They can outline it with parameters and with principles that they would have to follow that would in fact create a compliant map. So again, the argument itself is about 1 hour and 15 minutes long. I would highly recommend you go and watch it. It really was something to behold. And we are very encouraged and excited to hear what the oral argument is, or what the decision is following today. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those. I don't know if we want to wait till the end, but please feel free to ask either verbally or in the chat.
I think we can take a couple of questions. Yeah, Mia says yes. If anybody.
And it seems like, Colin, do you want to just sort of quickly scan through the chat? Some of these have been answered and some of them are like, will there be links? And yes, we will send links and all of that. But, you know, folks were asking what happens if the map does need to get redrawn? Who does it go back to? If you can answer that one.
Yeah, so every revision of the state legislative maps will go to the Ohio Redistricting Commission, since they are the sole map drawing body for state legislative, you know, state House and Senate districts. They will be responsible for drawing any new map that would then have to be signed off on by the Ohio Supreme Court. There is not a hard deadline for when a decision can be met. However, you know, the justices know that this issue is ripe for finality. This has been a hotly contested and debated issue since before 2015. So everybody's familiar with the arguments. You know, it's obvious through some of the questioning that the justices had that they had read through our briefs line by line. They were citing explicit paragraphs during questioning. So I fully expect the Supreme Court to issue a ruling sooner rather than later. And by that, I mean potentially before Christmas, but I would say at the latest, right after the new year. Because, you know, you still have that 30-day allotment for once an order comes out for the commission to create a new compliant map. And this has to be settled prior to the since moved filing deadline from February 2nd to March 4th. So I believe the justices will ensure that any sort of remedy comes sooner rather than later.
We've got 2 hands raised. Let's see, Peter. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah, there you go.
Oh, Peter, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Well, while Peter is figuring out his audio, let's go to Gary.
Yeah.
Gary, I think you're still muted if you're talking as well. Yeah.
Not sure what's going on with those.
Does my audio work now? No.
Yes, it does.
No, Peter, yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
So Gary, wait a second and we'll go to Peter.
Okay, I was just curious. It seemed to me that Mr. Huffman's attorney contradicted Ray DeRossi's testimony before the Redistricting Commission that he did not take partisan data into account. Do you think that has any significance?
So if my recollection serves me, Ray DeRossi said that he did not take racial data into account when drawing the maps, not partisan data. However, in depositions and in interrogatories, Ray DeRossi was told to not consider the Section 6 proportionality requirements when drawing the maps. Instead, achieving the proportionality standard would be handled seemingly through negotiation and compromise, as Phil Strach said.
Thanks.
Gary? Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen the, have you seen the federal lawsuit filed by Percy Squire in the Northern District.
I've seen the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
All right. Percy Squire from Columbus filed a lawsuit in federal court under the Voting Rights Act at the end of last week, I believe, with the same group of clients, essentially he had in 1991, challenging the Congressional Map and apparently the State Senate map on Voting Rights Act Section 2. Have you seen that yet?
So I have seen news stories. I haven't read the complaint, and I'm sorry if I got it misconstrued, but I was under the impression that that lawsuit was filed against the Congressional Map.
Yes,
well, it was filed against the Congressional Map, but if you read through it, he also attacks the Senate map farther down.
Okay.
Essentially, he's complaining that the Black residents of Trumbull and Mahoning are getting stuck in the Appalachian District. I sent copies of the complaint earlier today to Catherine and to Lisa and to Mia and to Shanahan. Hopefully one of them can get it to you, or you can send me your email and I will send it to you in the morning.
And it's on the next slide.
Yeah, we're getting to it in a second.
Yeah, it's on the next slide.
Jean.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks. So if we go through a process of redrawing the map, will it be a 10-year map or a 4-year map?
Well, that's an interesting question. There is no subsequent vote following the drawing of a new map. As far as my memory serves, I don't have the language right in front of me. I would imagine that since the original vote enacting the map was such that it would create a 4-year map, that would be the life term of this map. However, Gene, I must admit I'm not 100% certain that that's correct, but I believe that would be the case because there's not a new vote taken following the creation of a new map. So that's a very good question. I would imagine it would still be 4 years, however.
Thank you.
Yes. And Jay?
Yeah.
Yes. In terms of Justice DeWine's recusal, where does that stand, and will that make a difference even if he doesn't recuse himself?
Well, as it stands, it didn't happen. You know, it's kind of a done issue since they've heard oral argument. He's read the briefs. He participated in today's proceedings. You know, that is one, you know, that's something that is in Ohio law, that there's no mechanism to compel a justice of the Supreme Court to recuse. It's essentially at their discretion. So unfortunately, there's no real way he could recuse himself now. However, you know, what that says for the possibility of the verdict or the order, again, I would just go back to say that we have always been operating under the assumption of this lawsuit that we are talking to a constituency of one. Maureen O'Connor is going to be the deciding factor. That thinking seemed to have held up. If you are trying to read the tea leaves between or through the questioning of the justices, it seems as if it's going to be, you know, and I could be wrong here, this is just speculation, but it seems as if Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor will be the swing vote one way or another, either 4-3 overruling the map or 4-3 upholding the map. And just reiterating from what I saw today, I think we're in a good spot.
Thank you so much, Colin.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of all we have time for right now. I know there's a lot of questions about how you might help, and we'll talk about that somewhat more. Unless there's something else anyone wants to add from the host here. Okay. Next slide. All right, so at this point, I think I'm going to hand it off to Catherine. She can talk about.
So what I'm going to do is go over what the new congressional map has. Now, this is something that Chris Cusack, this is Professor Emeritus Chris Cusack from Keene State, who was the geographer who worked with us on the competition. So it's just a run through to give us a sense of what this map looks like. And so, you know, as you look at this, you can see some pretty obvious odd shapes. And, you know, so what we're going to do is we're going to, if you're willing to move to the next slide, what we're going to do is we're going to use Dave's Redistricting app to kind of look at a couple different criteria. So we're going to look at what we think of as representational fairness or proportionality. In other words, you look at, you know, the voting patterns of Ohioans, and you identify the votes that are Democratic and Republican, and then the district should favor that overall. So, if, you know, if 54% of Ohioans vote Republican and 46% vote Democratic, which is approximately correct over a 10-year period, well, the district line should favor that, meaning districts should be, you know, they're not going to be even Steven, but you're talking about 54, 46. And then there are other criteria that, of course, we care about. We care about competitiveness. We care about minority representation and compactness and the splitting of communities. And many of you were really engaged in, you know, creating community maps to identify kind of the best way to kind of keep our communities together. And so what we did, if you'll move to the next slide, is it's important to think about bigger is better in this context. And so Senate Bill 258 is the new congressional map. Senate Bill 237 is the Ohio Senate Dems map, just to give you an example of, you know, what was also being considered. And then you have the Ohio Citizens Redistricting Commission that's on that left bottom. And then you have the Fair Districts Mapping Competition winner. And I think you can really see here, you know, one of the things that happened with the congressional map is there was a lot of bragging about how competitive it was. But if you look at the Citizens Redistricting Commission map and you look at the Fair Districts map, you can see that those are more competitive. There was also a bunch of bragging about how it didn't split communities. And yet, you know, bigger is better in this context. And the number is 51 there. And then you go and you look, okay, so it's 69 for the Citizens Redistricting Commission. And then, you know, you can actually see that it's much higher for the Fair Districts mapping competition. And it just gives you a sense of, like, clearly the Dems also wanted to have proportionality or representational fairness. But clearly, this is almost close to zero. This is such a small number in terms of representational fairness. And we know that, in fact, the maps overtly favor the GOP. All right, if you'll go to the next slide. So, you know, in representational fairness, there is not a criteria for this, the criteria that we have for representational fairness, which is looking at a 10-year period of statewide elections to determine, you know, how the districts line up. 54%, 46% is you know, the example I was giving, or what we're experiencing right now. But it was a way to reinforce for the state legislative maps, you know, what was gerrymandering. And so as you look at this, you know, what we should be looking at if we were to actually have fair maps is approximately, you know, 8 Republican seats, 7 Democratic seats. Hopefully you'd have some in there that are competitive, but clearly that's not what happened. So Senate Bill 258, you have 11 hard Republican districts, meaning they're very Republican districts. You have 2 very hard Democrat districts. And then you have 2 that are that are very close. District 9 is actually, that's Marcy Kaptur's district. So, like, if you think about how she went from the Snake on the Lake to this district that has a Republican advantage, I think it's, you know, it's not an overt one, but it is a Republican advantage. And then the other thing that's important to remember is Teresa Gavarone, who was on that Senate Oversight and Reform, that committee that actually heard this bill. She was the one that was like, you know, everybody mind your P's and Q's. She, you know, she had, you know, the clerks there paying attention to like whether we were well behaved or not. She actually has said that she is running for Congressional District 9. And so, you know, as we think about folks creating maps for them to actually run for, it's you know, it's just incredibly sad. So the next slide, please. So I just thought this would be helpful to like look at what we're talking about as we're thinking about what is reasonable and what's not. It is very likely, and this is based on, you know, I said there were a couple seats that it was, you know, you have some question. They're competitive enough. It's not exactly clear who'd win, but it's very likely that you're talking about a 12-3 map. Gary Gale wants to highlight that Gavarone does not actually currently live in Congressional District 9, but what she did is she actually changed her voting residency and found a house that essentially was at the intersection of her Senate seat and the new congressional district. So she is renting in Huron, as Mia noted. So if you're willing to move to the next slide. Okay, so, you know, we talked about representational fairness, and clearly, you know, the definition of partisan gerrymandering is overtly favoring one political party over the other. So we know that Senate Bill 258, this new map, it overtly favors one political party over the other. So completely disadvantages one political party. But we also can identify some challenges with compactness. And this is a criteria that most people just generally agree that you want to have your districts, you know, you want to have them so you're keeping communities together. You want them compact as much as possible. You'll notice here, this is Hamilton County here. And you can see the kind of, the kind of nonsense that they got up to make it so that they could capture Republican Warren County, and then they could crack, and just add, add some of Hamilton County, some of the Democratic votes in, so that they were overwhelmed by Republican Warren County. And if you go to the next slide, you can see a little bit about, we talk a lot about partisan gerrymandering, but we're talking about splitting the minority vote. We're talking about essentially cracking the minority vote, splitting Hamilton County to dilute the voting power, not just of Democrats, but also of minorities. And so if you'll go to the next slide, here we have the overlay. Back, please. Here we have the overlay where you can, so first of all, we had the minority votes. And now you have an overlay of Democrats. And so you get a sense that we're talking about the cracking of the vote. That's not just minority votes, but we're also talking about Democratic votes. And we have a stronger understanding of how this malarkey, as Steve says, malarkey, or this gerrymandering works in this map. And so at the next slide, I wanted to take us, we were down in Hamilton County, we're gonna head north, so take 75 up to all the way to Toledo, and south of Toledo, this is an area where, we have Congressional District 5 and Congressional District 9. We'll be familiar with 9, that's right now Snake on the Lake, Marcy Kaptur's district. In this area, and the area that we're talking about is south of Toledo. I'm sorry, it's gonna take me just a moment. We're talking about Stony Ridge. And the area there is like along Fremont Pike. There's literally a house that is divided in half. Debbie Delkey says, I found the people who live in the house. So just imagine, I've kind of joked about, hey, my Republican husband is in one area and I'm over in this area. But can you imagine actually dividing a house so it's not clear where the voters should actually, which district are they in? How will the boards of elections deal with this? And when you do this kind of gerrymandering, it has real consequences for voter confusion. And now for the next slide. Now we're going to travel from Toledo down to Dayton and Springfield. You know, one of the things that we know from looking closely at the map are the kind of number of weird kind of what we could think of as peninsulas or hooks. And you can look at this and you can see the kind of gerrymander where they were trying to bring in some Democratic voters to make it so that they could be surrounded or cracked by Republican voters. And that's what this peninsula here is like, as opposed to creating a strong Democratic district or a district that was an opportunity district for African Americans. What they have done is actually carved it out in a specific way to disadvantage the party not in power. Next slide, please. All right, now we get to this slide right here. So a lot of us are familiar with the duck, you know, Jim Jordan's duck. Jim Jordan's duck now looks like this. This is Congressional District 5. And what's really crazy here is this district still takes 200 miles from the beginning in Lorain County, working its way all the way over to Fort Recovery. We're talking about, because we're not talking, there's, you know, you're missing highway for a good chunk. It will literally take 5 hours for the representative to actually get from one end to the next end. And so just incredibly, incredibly difficult to represent. I did want to highlight that, so we went through kind of Dave's redistricting app, but there are other tools that can help us examine and think about these maps. And I'm going to encourage you all to check out the Princeton Gerrymandering Project. They look at maps from all over the country. They gave our new congressional map an F. And then F on partisan fairness. They said, hey, it's, you know, competitive enough. It's, you know, I guess it's compact enough, or keeps geography together is their way of describing that. But in fact, it is not fair when it comes to the partisan advantage for the GOP. All right, well, that is my last kind of slide, other than and you know, other than just to make a space now for you if you all have questions. And if I cannot answer them, I'll make sure to take your questions down and we can hook you up later with Professor Cusack. Any questions? Oh, Mia, you're on mute.
Sorry, we have had a few in the chat, but we've been furiously trying to answer them. Jean, I know Colin is writing an answer to your question right now, but maybe Colin, you just want to answer her out loud. She was basically asking if there's a racial gerrymander in our maps, can the DOJ sue Ohio like what is happening in Texas?
So to be brief, and you know, yes, they can. Now, I find that very unlikely. Unlike Texas, some areas of Texas, Ohio does not meet the threshold that is, you know, kind of the holding in federal law for the requirement of majority districts. You know, so you know, there would have to be a very very persuasive empirical explanation for racial gerrymandering in the state, other than the lawsuit that was most recently filed. I don't believe any of the other lawsuits that are currently working through make a racial gerrymandering claim. But yes, the Department of Justice has the authority and the ability to bring these maps to court. I don't think that that's a highly probable scenario, however.
And Penny, what is your question?
I don't remember the number for it, but it's the congressional district I'm now in. It's Geauga and Ashtabula and part of Cuyahoga. Well, actually, it's parts of all of them. It seems like it's the townships versus the suburbs. I don't see a lot of relationship or community of interest between the Geauga and Ashtabula part and the part that's in Cuyahoga County.
Well,
one of the things that was the most depressing to me is the kind of energy that we put into kind of community mapping, doing the mapping competition, because of course, we want to make sure that communities are together as much as possible. And obviously we don't want, we don't want to be gerrymandered, but there's also that thing of the choices that were made clearly didn't focus on keeping communities together.
And I think what we'll do is Catherine and Colin are going to kind of scout through the chat and see if there are any other questions that haven't been answered. And meanwhile, I'm just going to kind of plow on here. And I'm glad you asked specific questions about, a specific district, because we're really interested in hearing how this congressional map, well, actually any of them, but particularly the congressional map, how it affects you. So we're encouraging you to take a look at the map on Dave's Redistricting app and to look at your area and to, write a little bit of something. When it says Chris's slides here, that's the slides that Catherine just went through. And of course you will receive these slides. And to take a look and write something up about, how that map affects you. So you can use that to write a letter to the editor. You can tweet about it. You can put a Facebook post up about it. You can write to your representatives. And you can also send a copy of to us either at our email there or drop it into the folder. And we have some fact sheets here as well about the maps that we're sharing with you here. So, yes, the maps have been signed into law by the governor. They are being challenged. If they need to be redrawn, then highlighting what was bad about them becomes even more important. So we really do want you to stay engaged and to take that step of writing something specific about your own district if you possibly are able to. And next slide, please. So this has been a really long journey, and you all have been incredible partners and incredible warriors in this fight. And we want to do a little exercise right now where we get your thoughts about what's good, what bad things you're feeling, what's upsetting you about this whole process and kind of how it panned out, and what makes you proud and what makes you happy. So if you are willing right now, Lisa's going to stop sharing her screen. I'm going to start sharing my screen. And we are going to go and do a little exercise right now.
Democrat, Republican.
Oh, sorry. We're going to have somebody, I'm going to mute everybody again. There we go. And now I'm going to share my screen. If everyone can take out your phone and open up a browser to menti.com and then when it asks you for a code, put in 23422655. Uh-oh, this is supposed to be what upsets you. Somebody wrote fair maps, hopeful, determined. So you can enter 3 words and push enter, and then you can do it again if you want. But this is what upsets you about the 2021 redistricting process. And I'm gonna just give it a few minutes so that folks can get out their phones, get to menti.com, go to 234-2655, and just keep on putting in words there. A wink and a nod, cheating, bullying, unaccountability, all of these. We're purging our systems of all these negative, upsetting thoughts. Geez, no one's done the one that I did. Okay, I'm gonna have to enter mine. That's gonna have to wait for me because I have to enter mine. All right. Mine have been entered. I think I'm going to keep entering them.
The code is 23422655. It's at the top of the screen.
And we'll stop in a second. All right, so I've entered Huffman enough times that it's showing up a little bit large. The more times one word is entered, the bigger it gets. So you guys are awesome. You've put in a lot of great things. Secretive, unfair, unconstitutional, undemocratic, didn't listen, discouraging. Okay, this is fantastic. I'm going to do a screenshot here if I can get it to be still for a second. Well, that's kind of hard, I guess. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for entering all of this. And now we're going to go on to the next one, which I just have to get to here. Hold on. I have to move. I have to.
Well, what a cool tool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, okay. Need to get to the next one, but I can't see my control panel because it's being hidden by
you were very near it. You were just moving.
Am I there? Is that?
You're right. You're on it, and all you need to do is move to the right a little, and you get to the arrow.
The control panel is in the way. Let me see if I can make the control panel stop for a second. No. Oh, well. Let me see here. Oh, I can move that. Okay, very good. All right, the next one. Now if you all go to next question, hit next question. And the question is right there for you. What makes you proud about Fair Districts 2021? And just pop that right in there. Anybody, have you guys gotten to the next? Voting is closed, sorry, open voting. Sorry, open voting. All right, now try. Can somebody tell me if it's working? Oh, there we go. And you can submit more than once.
It says mine is closed.
Well, you might be on an old one or something.
No, I was able to do it the first time. Huh.
That's weird. Now,
okay, I'll try again.
Did you hit next question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll try again.
At the top, it says presenter has moved slides. And I don't know if that, you guys, look at all these great words here. Citizens, community, persistence, enthusiasm, fierce advocates, organized, people power, transparent, honest. Okay, so I think what this shows is that we have such a huge store of positive people power and solidarity and energy and integrity and all of these good things. And no matter what happens, I'm so happy that Colin is encouraged, but I am not a chicken counter. So I am a very cautious person. And no matter what happens, we still have all of this and we still will be able to deploy it. So I'm going to take a picture of this. I'm going to close voting and take a picture of this. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and we'll go back to Lisa's slides. Thank you guys for participating in that.
Okay, I've returned and upped my Christmas ante. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in that word cloud. It felt good to vent and feel good about some of the things that we've done. Just got to keep going. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is the actions that we can take from here on out.
Yeah.
So
we already talked about the map collection and the map story collection. The next thing that you can do is take our questionnaire, and that's a link there. Tiffany's popping it in the slides, and oh, yeah, there we go. And it's okay. And that questionnaire just asks you kind of for all of the things that you did for fair districts and your ideas of, you know, how you felt about them and what you think was the most effective and what you thought we could do better, etc. Christy wants a yard sign. I have some. We can get you one. Don't worry. Anyway, so the questionnaire is very important. If you guys can all fill it out, we will super appreciate it. And we do want you to, basically, I don't want you to feel that you all, you know, we need a break. This has been a long, hard road and everybody needs a break. So I don't want everyone to feel like we're telling you, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. But I do want you to feel like no matter what happens with the court cases, we're not going to allow an unjust map or a gerrymandered map or set of maps to just be adopted in Ohio and just kind of carry on as if it's business as usual. It's not business as usual. We're going to keep this in our hearts as something really, really wrong that happened, and we're going to share that and try to make that better. So whether that's a letter to the editor, whether it's emailing your legislators, sending, if you have remaining postcards, sending your postcards to your legislators to thank them or to tell them that you were really thank them for voting against the bad maps, or tell them you were really disappointed that they voted for the bad maps. Keep your yard signs up. Yes, that is right outside my house. That picture is for real. You know, stay organized. If you were meeting, I know there were people who were meeting and organizing around fair districts. Stay organized, stay in touch with each other, stay ready. So basically what we're saying is to our organizing, to our fair districts army, at ease for the holidays, but do not disband. We put a lot of energy into creating this army, and you guys are fantastic, and we need to stay organized because, you know, the fight isn't over until we have fair maps in Ohio. And that is really, really important. Next slide. I think we're coming to the end here, folks. Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah, so right now we're planning on a February check-in. As Colin said, we don't know exactly when we'll hear from the Supreme Court, so we'll find out. So if we do hear after the holidays, then we will reschedule a meeting so we can talk about what the next steps might be. So we still plan on doing these every Wednesday. I'm sorry, once a month on the second Wednesday at 6 p.m. Into the future. So it's going to be a nice relax and recharge and learn to appreciate the things that we have. Like, you all are wonderful. There are 93, there were 100 people on this call today. And we really, really appreciate you all tuning in every Wednesday, once a month on Wednesday, just to hear what's going on. We wouldn't have done this without you. We wouldn't have been loud. We wouldn't have had thousands of people turn up at hearings and give testimony. And even though they, you know, are attempting to usurp our power, we're going to fight to take it back. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Lisa, do you mind if I bump in and just say a special thank you? I mean, it's thank you to all the volunteers, but a special thank you to Michael Barron, who is volunteer extraordinaire into ad infinitum, who has been doing so much for fair districts, and he's going to be moving out of the state. And so we wanted to say a very, very special thank you to Michael. We super appreciate everything that you have done.
And there are too many people to thank. But yeah, Michael does so much for the league. So we're gonna miss you.
Yeah.
And you know, we're gonna take stock, and 2022 is coming up. New year, same maps. And we're gonna celebrate what we can. And we look forward to everybody enjoying the holidays. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah. And we'll see you at the next huddle in February or January. Stay tuned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Winter solstice too.
Oh, winter solstice. I love the winter solstice.
And there's our email. So if you have questions that weren't answered tonight, please feel free to reach out to us. And we super appreciate each and every one of you. Truly.
We'll still send updates on major things that happen. So we're all in this together.
We sure are.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.